Tracking the coronavirus 1 year later, the devastating impacts on local sports from high school to minor league baseball.
Yeah, the South Bend Cubs trying to rebound after losing their entire season last year with hopes they can still defend the championship they won back in 2019.
ABC 57's Anthony Totri continues our team coverage now from Four Winds Field.
This time last year, the COVID-19 pandemic flipped the sports world upside down. From the big leagues to high school and youth sports, some seasons were canceled entirely, while others had to adapt to a new normal. A face mask, weekly COVID testing, social distancing, and no fans in the stands. But through it all, the community found new and creative ways to overcome that adversity. Athletes and coaches taking on more than just the opponent on the field. They were also tasked with staying safe in an environment that naturally brings people closer together. With sports shut down in the spring of 2020, the first real test for safety protocols didn't come until the summer, when high school football teams stepped back on the field. Josh Shattuck, the football coach at Elkhart High School, says he learned a valuable lesson when his team returned to the gridiron.
It's about the student athlete, the individual, the person being able to compete, be a part of something, and have physical activity. So I think that part of it, we all recognize just the true importance of it when it looked like it might be taken away.
Simultaneously, the South Bend Cubs, known for bringing South Bend residents together at Four Winds Field, were left in limbo. Minor League Baseball eventually canceled the 2020 season, leaving the team with an empty ballpark. But South Bend Cubs president Joe Hart and the rest of the organization decided to make do with what they were given.
I think it forced us to try some things we hadn't done in the past, that we realized they work, and it's just another opportunity to utilize Four Winds Field. So that's going to be something that we do again.
The South Bend Cubs hosted special events like movie nights and watch parties, not only to help with the financial struggles of a lost season, but also to give the community much needed hope and something to look forward to. Across the state line, a spike in COVID cases forced the shutdown of fall sports in Michigan, pausing the season for weeks. Kevin Dean, the Edwardsburg High School athletic director, described it like this.
Land an airplane while you're building it is what it's like, and that's pretty accurate because you just, you don't have the information you need, yet you're trying to, steer for the future.
Despite the countless setbacks, the Eddies football team managed to put together a phenomenal season that left them just short of a trip to the state championship. But the uncertainty brought on by the pandemic continued through the winter sports season. Coaches, players, and athletic directors truly not knowing when or if a game would take place.
It created so much anxiety because you didn't know if you were going to get the call. You didn't know how contact tracing would go. You didn't know if you'd be on the court for practice or for the game 2 weeks out. How would that affect what you're trying to create moving forward?
South Bend Washington girls basketball coach Steve Reynolds dealing with more than just anxiety for his team, but for his family as well after his mother was diagnosed with COVID-19, taking her away from her job for months on end. With that in his mind, Reynolds still managed to coach the Panthers through a season and onto a state championship game for the first time in over a decade. And when the time came for the historic game, Reynolds' mother, who recovered from the illness, made sure to be in attendance.
And she's a light for me, and so, but I know behind the scenes she was struggling, so it was just good. See her alive, see her cheering, see her just proud of her son, was everything.
So while not every game was played, not every practice was had, and not every team won a championship, 2020 was a success for sports here in Michiana because of the growth that took place.
I think more importantly, just being able to get out there and play and have a season was a success.
We've been able to do something. It's not the normal and it's not the same length of the seasons that we typically would have, but it's better than just having no spring season at all last year.
Yeah, 2020 was a success, and I guess success is always how you define it, but I think at the end of the day, yeah, we can look back and say, while there was no baseball, yeah, we still were able to be successful.
Teams are now looking ahead to a post-COVID future. The start of minor league baseball here at Four Winds Field is less than 2 months away, and the South Bend Cubs tell me that they do expect to allow a limited number of fans and that keeping everyone safe is a top priority.
1 year ago today, the coronavirus was formally declared a global pandemic. And one of the first things to shut down, you may recall, was the world of sports. For months, no games and no fans. ABC 57 Saturday kickoff host Allison Hayes in studio tonight with how Notre Dame athletics was forced to adapt.
Well, that's right. Typically, this time of year, the Notre Dame football team's spring practice is in full swing. But if this last year of dealing with COVID has taught us anything, it's that there's no such thing as typical anymore. Now, Notre Dame tells me the Irish are planning to begin spring practice at the end of this month with the goal of playing a blue-gold game near the end of April. Well, Brian Kelly and his staff thought the same thing last spring when everything came to a screeching halt.
Well, you saw them taking the field today, a lot of excitement surrounding this team.
March 5th, 2020, spring practice began at Notre Dame. But 6 days later, with COVID-19 concerns spreading, Notre Dame sent all students home for the semester and canceled the annual Blue Gold game, leaving the future of the college football season in question. In June, with players isolated but back on campus, head coach Brian Kelly spoke with the media about the new safety protocols in place, from a zero-tolerance mask policy to a shifted locker room schedule and multiple weekly COVID-19 tests.
Are you testing daily? Is it weekly? Is it just on players who show symptoms?
You will not be able to get into the football building unless you've been tested.
The season opener against Navy moved from Ireland to Annapolis, Maryland, and then was canceled altogether. The landscape was ever-changing, and perhaps the biggest change came when historically independent Notre Dame agreed to join the Atlantic Coast Conference.
It's so exciting that we get to play football this year. That's all that matters to me, and I think that's all that matters to my teammates.
Games were added, rescheduled, and canceled. Players tested positive, but the Irish kept fighting, even upsetting #1 ranked Clemson in an unforgettable double overtime game at Notre Dame Stadium.
It is over, and the Irish have knocked off #1 Clemson.
And ultimately earning a spot in the college football playoffs. But the Rose Bowl game had to be played in Texas so players' families could attend.
It was so important for us to make certain that we got our players' parents to be part of this special game.
But football was not the only Notre Dame sport affected by COVID-19. Last spring saw the cancellation of every sport, not only here in South Bend, but across the country.
March Madness turned to March Sadness in 2020 when the NCAA men's and women's basketball tournaments were canceled for the first time since they began in 1939. New Irish women's coach Niall Ivey began her first season at the helm, figuring out a very different landscape.
It's definitely a challenge. You know, I always feel like I got 2 games. I got to beat COVID when we take our tests, and then I got to beat our next opponent. But at first, you got to get through the COVID piece. And so it's definitely a new normal for us, but we've navigated really well.
Both Irish basketball programs forced to adapt to make the 2021 season take place, dealing with COVID-19 case spikes and multiple last-minute schedule changes.
Like I got a text before I went on that all our tests from Monday were negative. That's how I live, and we live every 2 days.
Meanwhile, on the diamond, new Irish baseball coach Link Jarrett saw his first season cut short in 2020. Notre Dame off to its best start in 5 years when the season abruptly ended.
When Jack called me, we were actually going to practice at Louisville. He said, "Coach, you need to turn that bus around and go to the hotel and let us direct you on what we need to do next." When you get that phone call, it hits home a little bit. And to be honest with you, Allison, I thought this was going to be, okay, we're going to take 3 weeks to a month and figure out.
This season, the Irish Sluggers saw their first 3 games of 2021 canceled due to COVID-19. Since then, they've won 4 out of 6. But the team has had to change the way it conducts business to make that happen.
Just being around the team and the team being together in a casual setting and even in an instructional setting, that's been the biggest adjustment by far.
Now, the Irish baseball team's home opener is slated for March 19th with a 3-game series against the Duke Blue Devils. And of course, there will be a limited amount of fans allowed into these games. Notre Dame began easing its policy on fan attendance for the final 2 men's basketball games of the season, allowing just students, faculty, and staff. No announcement on whether fans will be allowed for a spring football game just yet.